I don't think I've ever seen a Senate confirmation hearing go so badly for the Democrats as it did. Now, they tried and they failed to crush Pete Hegseth in the first hearing, and he was supposed to be the easiest one for them to discredit. Now, if I were the Democrats right now, I would start worrying about how these future hearings will go, given that they did so bad in the first one. Now, Democrats really honed in on questioning Hegseth about, women in combat roles and his infidelity in previous marriages. They were really focused on these two topics, but it didn't seem to shake Hegseth at all. He was pretty calm and collected throughout the entire hearing, pretty much. Now, listening to the Democrats go on and on about inclusivity and combat roles really made them look ridiculous. And even worse, it made them look very disconnected from reality. Now, no reasonable person thinks that men and women are equal when it comes to fighting on the front lines of the battlefield. And I think Hegseth really hit the nail on the head with this one.
You've denigrated active duty service members. We have hundreds of women who are currently in the infantry, lethal members of our military serving in the infantry, but you degrade them. You said in your statement, you don't want politics in the DOD. Everything you've said in these public statements is politics. I don't want women. I don't want moms. What's wrong with a mom, by the way? Once you have babies, you therefore are no longer able to be lethal. I mean, you're basically saying women after they have children can't ever serve in the military in a combat role. It's a silly thing to say.
Well, Senator, I appreciate your comments. And I would point out, I have never disparaged women serving in the military. I respect every single female service member that has put on the uniform, past and present. My critiques, Senator, recently and in the past, and from personal experience, have been instances where I've seen standards lowered, and you mentioned 11 Alpha, 11 Bravo, MOS, places in units, and the book that has been referenced multiple times here, The War on Warriors. I spent months talking to active duty service members, men and women, low ranks, high ranks, combat arms and not combat arms. And what each and every one of them told me, and which personal instances have shown me, is that in ways direct, indirect, overt, and subtle, standards have been changed inside infantry training units, ranger school, infantry battalions, to ensure that
Give me one example. Please give me an example. I get you're making these generalized statements.
Commanders meet quotas to have a certain number of female infantry officers or infantry enlisted, and that disparages those women.
Commanders do not have to meet quotas for the infantry. Commanders do not have to have a quota for women in the infantry. That does not exist.
Okay, first off, Hegseth did not say women have no place in the military, nor did he say that women cannot perform in combat. He did say that they shouldn't be in combat arms, but I think it's important to understand what combat arms is. Combat arms is a specific group of military career fields that includes, infantry, armor, and artillery, but amongst other ones. But, he did offer the caveat that if they meet the same standards as men, then there's no issue here. But the problem is that the standards will be lowered, and they have been lowered in order to allow more women into these career fields. But the bottom line here is that women perform worse in these combat roles, with a few exceptions. Now, there are women out there who can, hack it as a firefighter, as a coal miner, and, other such jobs. But there are a tiny amount of women who can also hack it in combat arms. And I'm not saying that they should be prevented from doing so. But as Hegseth said, they have to meet the standards, the same standards as men. And the general public has to accept the fact that the combat arms career field will just be dominated by men. The bottom line here is that you can either have a military that, fully invests in DEI initiatives, or you can have a military that focuses on the mission and winning wars, but you can't have both. Now, let me talk about the next topic. They dug into his infidelity. They brought up his personal life because apparently they think that his infidelity means that he is not qualified to be the Secretary of Defense.
You are still married to your second wife, correct? I believe so.
And you had just fathered a child by a woman who would later become your third wife, correct?
Senator, I was falsely charged, fully investigated, and completely cleared.
So you think you were completely cleared because you committed no crime? That's your definition of cleared? You had just fathered a child 2 months before by a woman that was not your wife. I am shocked that you would stand here and say you're completely cleared. Can you so casually cheat on a second wife and cheat on the mother of a child that had been born 2 months before, and you tell us you are completely cleared?
Senator,
how is that a complete clear?
Senator, her child's name is Gwendolyn Hope Hegseth, and she's a child of God, and she's 7 years old.
And she was, and
here.
You cheated on the mother of that child less than 2 months after that daughter was born, didn't you?
Those were false charges.
Well,
it was fully investigated, and I was completely cleared. And I am so grateful for the marriage I have to this.
Now, I don't want to be disingenuous. The people that Trump nominated are not exactly role models. You know, they're not angels. They're not perfect people, but we could expect them to have their past questions. And look, you can definitely dig up some dirt on Democrats, the same Democrats who are trying to question Hegseth from some place of, you know, a moral high ground. You know, just like Congressman Mullen said, who confirms what I just said and basically dismisses all the morals of the Democrats in this hearing. Okay, so this just confirms what always happens with Democrats, you know, and I've talked about this on my channel in multiple videos, but they can do no wrong. However, beneath the surface, you know, they are probably the dirtiest and dirtier than the people that are that they're prosecuting and persecuting. Now, this hearing to me was like watching a live roasting session with, you know, the occasional occupational interview related question that wasn't really thought through. And Democrats really tried to break him, and the man just didn't flinch. But they tried to pin him on assault. That didn't work. Then they tried to pin him on, you know, sloppy finances. That didn't work. Then they tried to paint him as a woman abuser. That didn't work. And then one by one, they seemed to basically discredit themselves by asking these weak questions and having emotional outbursts.
Well, in short, I think Pete Hegseth kicked their asses today. I mean, it wasn't even close. They didn't lay a glove on Hegseth. No mistakes, calm, cool, collected. I mean, before the thing even started, you had this like Code Pink, you know, protester freak show trying to disrupt the hearing. That's the Democratic base, by the way, which probably explains why the Democrats on the committee acted in such a bizarre and unprofessional way. I was appalled at some of the way these senators handle themselves and some of the lines of questioning. I mean, Tim Kaine sounded like a sex pervert in his questioning of Pete Hegseth. Blumenthal, who lied about his service in Vietnam, questioning Hegseth's qualifications. You had Gillibrand, you had Warren, you had Hirono going on unhinged rants about things. Angus King obviously doesn't understand what it's like to fight terrorism. On and on and on. Hegseth was cool in the face of this unhinged questioning. They made him look good today. It would be difficult for a Republican to vote against Hegseth after the Democrats' unseemly mudslinging today.
Look, overall, though, clearly Hegseth was well prepared. And it was clear Democrats recognized that given that there was some clearly concern that he wouldn't be able to handle more than one round of questioning, they were clearly trying to get certain things on the record. Personally, the comms person in me would have framed it differently. I would have talked about a number of these issues, both based on his writings, which at one point they were trying to do that. That was part of the strategy. But really, in the context of the modern military, because the reality is, as military leaders will tell you, climate change is a national security concern. It's real. It is a threat to our forces. It is a threat to our bases. It is a threat to our readiness. So I would have framed some of these questions more in the context of the current challenges the modern military faces. It is a diverse force, which is part of why diversity matters.
DEI is distracting our military from its primary task, and implementing DEI in the military takes the focus away from, you know, defense of the country and moves it towards more of a destruction of our own societal norms and institutions. Now, I think DEI creates mental instability, and that automatically puts the country at risk of being literally and physically destroyed by the very own institutions that are created to protect us. And I think a big example of that is the COVID vaccine mandate. And a lot of members were kicked out because of that, around 8,000 or so. So here is the biggest danger for the military. Politics. I think it is politics. I mean, let's think about it. Why do liberals always bring up climate change? It's always the cause of every disaster that ever happened. But why are they so obsessed about climate change? Look, the easiest way to control people is to scare them to death and then convince them that, we're here to save them. But that's exactly how climate change works. We will die in 10 years unless you allow the communists to decide for us.
I know some incoming administration, some in the incoming administration are skeptical about the need for clean energy. They don't even believe climate change is real. I think they come from a different century. They're wrong. They are dead wrong. It's the single greatest existential threat to humanity.
But remember, the easiest way to control people is to scare them to death. And I'm going to conclude on this. Do you think Hegseth should be nominated, or do you think the claims that were made during the hearing are a red flag? I mean, I'm going to give you my opinion. I think he should be confirmed, and I think he did very well during the hearing, especially while he was having a bunch of women and male feminists screeching at him the entire time. Some more information on his background. He did graduate from both Princeton and Harvard, has military experience as a former Army National Guard officer who served in Iraq and Afghanistan, and he has advocated for veterans issues. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.